Hey Addison. Okay. Cool studies. Let's see. So you're not sure what to ask for because you're just starting to do environments. Environments are not really my specialty. I'll try and help you as much as I can, but just know that I am not an expert. General tips on how to shade environments, things to look out for with reference. You don't really draw what you see. Okay, yeah, I can talk to you a bit about stuff like this and how to study in an environment, what to look for. Sure. Okay. So I'll basically just walk you through it as I would do it because, as I said, I'm not like an expert. One of the things you should notice first I guess it's a little different because I come from like a painting background and you're probably going to be stylizing more. But the first thing I check is values. So let me just make a value layer so we can see some of the big things that we might be missing. So what do I notice with these environments compared to these? Generally, it's okay, but there's a lot of darks missing here in these darker ones, and there's a lot of lights missing in the lighter ones. Okay, so that's like one big thing, that it means your values are a bit towards the middle. That's not necessarily bad, but if you're gonna do that and you're gonna go towards the middle in values, generally what you want is higher saturation. And I would say this saturation is not quite there yet. So when it comes to water, there's a property of water where depending on the angle you look at it, it's either more or less reflective of what is above. So as you look towards the distance, this water is going to get more and more reflective of the sky. And as you look down, it's less reflective and you'll actually see into the water. So let's see if we can find an example with these. It's not really good because it's so dark, but basically here we're getting a reflection of the light of whatever, if it's a camera or what. I don't know if this is the flash of the camera or if this is the sun. But here we're seeing more of a reflection of what's above. Yeah, these aren't great for that specifically. Yeah, they're not great. So, but even looking at that, that's a good thing to keep in mind. So what I do, so generally that's the rule. Like if the water is like, if the perspective's like this, right? And we're looking down at the water here, we'll see into the water, but as we go further away, it gets more reflective. So what that means is whatever the sky color is, that gets into this, or whatever is around. So in this case, it's a lot of leaves. It gets into the reflections back here. And then as you go closer to the front, like towards you, it's less reflective. Okay. Now, for this swampy thing, your values are much too blue, or your values are too light and your colors are too blue. So if you look at all these, they're very saturated. And one thing that can be good is in Photoshop, just like, I can do this for both. Open your color picker and just check what the colors are like. So, okay, so we're at this type of green. Like just look where the things are. And like, okay, so here's like the dark of the tree. What is that? Oh, it's this. Okay, what is my dark? Oh, it's very blue. See how we're in the blue hue here and we're in the green here? So if I go all the way around this image, we're pretty much stuck in greens. Whereas if I go through here, you'll see how it gets like, there's tons of blues, purpley blues, more cyan blues. Yes, there are some greens as well, but the greens are cold. So that's not, and here's some purples, that's not really reading a swamp to me. If this was intended as a swamp. Let's look at this one. So yeah, this one's into a lot of like yellows and oranges actually. You don't get so many, like this green is actually a yellow green. This green is more green, but it's like very close to yellow. So okay, so they stay within sort of a color palette. Here I managed to get some blues in the sky there, but generally, you know, it's all browns, oranges, yellows, yellow greens. In this case, because it's a snow scene, it's going to be different. But just to show, like, okay, so here we're very much in blues and we're in oranges and reds. There's not a whole lot of greens at all in this anywhere. So you take little mental notes and you treat that like a thing. So next time I want to paint a snow scene like this, maybe I'll remember, okay, oranges that are very reddish, like that, maybe that, and then blues, like mostly it's blues and oranges in the snow. So maybe there'll be like a bit of warmer snow, but I'll try and remember these types of like schemes. And then with this one, I remember it was a lot of yellow, like the greenest green is like here, but the rest is all like sort of in the yellow region. So I'll remember that, and I'll use those kinds of that kind of information when I'm making color choices. So it can really help. And even if I wanted this to be exaggerated, because these aren't the exact values as the one I picked, but the colors are a similar pattern. So just remembering patterns can really help. And then for this one, they were very dark and green, but not blue. Not blue at all. And then for this one, okay, so here we've got like a bigger shift, but generally we've got the blues in this tree, which is interesting, like very, very desaturated. And then we've got like a lot of yellows. We've got some greens, but they're not like these greens. They're like very close to yellow greens. Then we got browns in the water. So again, just memorizing those types of patterns can be helpful, because then afterwards you can just sort of rely on those patterns. Okay, another thing that can be very helpful is, let's say you found an image that was very close to what you had in mind. Like let's say this one was very close to what I intended for this one. One way of breaking yourself out of not knowing what to do is actually just put them side by side and then color pick the same spot in each one. So like here, this is kind of similar to this area. And then I'll just put this and I'll look at the difference of what I put, like what I guessed versus what I see. And you might want to turn on, for the eyedropper, you might want to turn 5x5 average or something. So you're not just picking one pixel, but sort of an average of pixels. And then like, okay, so the middle area is more like this. And this area towards us is like this, but we get this like whatever reflection. The greens are like that. So it starts to, I don't know if it'll work for you, but it works for me, where I start to build sort of a base of what things are. Here's like what a tree looks like. And then if you think like, whoa, that's way more green than I would have thought. That's the information that I think sticks. Where you start to update like this mental idea you have of what things are. Maybe you wouldn't think like, oh, the water's that dark, really? But then it is. And then when you put the other surroundings around, it'll sort of make more sense. So that's another way of doing it. Now, in terms of, what else did you ask? Things to look out for. Okay, so I think you've done a fairly good job with like getting shapes of things, but it can help to be more precise. So things like this for me can really help, where I'm just looking at a chart of similar things. Come on, let me grab you. Of similar things that, in this case, leaves, and I get to compare, like, what is this compared to this? What is this compared to this? And you don't have to memorize the whole world, but memorizing bits can help, because then you can just keep, like, sort of, I guess, reusing a lot of it. But what I would pay attention to, for instance, if I was studying this, is I would look at things like a very basic shape, and this might benefit you too. So like this can be simplified. Let's just use a more intense color. So it's like this. That's how I would think about it. And then I would tell myself, okay, so think of this fan, and then there's like 1, 2, 3. So if I think of like a segment and it's divided into 3, let's say 1, 2, 3. Okay, so the leaf part or the stem part's going to be this big. Then there's going to be an angle coming out, and then it's going to go around, and then you're going to get these like spiky bits coming off. And that's what I'll try to remember. And then as I draw this, it's kind of like, oh yeah, you break it into thirds. It doesn't even have to be precise. There's a stem part. Boom. Okay, that's that kind of like thing, that shape. For this one, I might think of it like, oh, this is a circle. Sorry, it's a bad circle, but there's a circle. It's not like perfectly round, but whatever. Pretty darn round. Then you've got like this, and then you've got the crooked stem part. You erase these parts, and you make, from this point, it's sort of fan out. And then what I would notice is that it's a little off center. So if you think about this circle, the center would be here, but it's a little lower. So I'll remember that, like, okay, so I want to draw this thing again. Okay, so you start with a circle, there's like the center, we go a bit lower, we do this shape, and then we do this little like crook for a thing, and then from this point, start shooting out, and then these have a shape to them, kind of like a leaf shape. So I get that in. But geometry is really, really useful when you're doing these things. There's some great artists that were working in animation, and they would simplify everything. Like, they would draw a landscape kind of like this, where it's, let's say that's the frame. They would do like circle, cone, cone, straight, maybe another circle here, maybe like a taller cone here, and then like it's very geometric, and then maybe like box, okay, and then they would take that and render it, but do like the tree and all those little details, but staying within these like general shapes, so you can create it where it looks fancy and like complicated, but actually it's just, you know, maybe these squares are just bushes like that. And once you add the details, it stops looking exactly like what you thought. Maybe these our trees like that. Right? So it can look complicated, but it doesn't have to be starting from complexity. And because it's so geometric and pleasant in a way, when you flesh this out, it can be very appealing. You can like make like a design like that. So there's like a path that goes in the distance, and then, you know, we have maybe like the sky has like a pattern to it, and it would create very appealing compositions. But it's so appealing because it's working off such basic things. So same with this one. The way I would think about this one is, okay, there's like this shape, kind of like a reverse leaf, what I would think of, because I usually think of like the fat part at the bottom, and then the skinny part at the tip, and then the fat part connects to it. This one feels like it's the opposite, and then you put a stem on it, and the stem is like this shape. And I'm noticing that the stem was this shape for this one, the stem was that shape for, like, this one has a curved stem, this one had a curved stem, this one had a curved stem, this one has a curved stem. So it's like, okay, so either the stems seem to be straight, or they seem to have a little crook in them. Okay, again, thing to keep in mind. So what you're doing, this one has that, so I guess this is where it attaches to the other branch, this one as well. So yeah, this too. I guess it just depends. Maybe if you cut it from there, then it's straight. If you include this part, it's curved. I mean, not curved, but like that shape. So yeah, memorizing those things. And this helps if you're actually doing this as a thing, like you're doing lots of environments. You can see here how clearly simple these triangles are. And here, I feel like this is like a sort of like this shape, umbrella shape, except it's got like that, and then a little squiggle. So what I would do is, if I'm trying to recreate this, I would remember, like, okay, how tall is it? How much is this part? No, it's about half. So half of it is umbrella, half of it is stem. Okay, but then the stem, the umbrella part gets the parts cut into it. Okay, so I'd go like, ooh, I'm gonna sketch this really rough. Okay, we go find that distance, duplicate it. That's where the stem is. This comes out like that. And then there's some like shapes like that. So now I can replicate this generally pretty quickly. It'll be appealing because it's fit within a basic geometry. And then I can just do that over and over again. With these types of things, look for the bigger shape. So it's like, oh, there's like this diamond shape. Sometimes it's easier to remember these types of shapes. Like what was the diamond's proportion? Something like this. Okay, then you have 1, 2, 3, 4. And 2 are on one side and 1 is on the other. It's like, sure. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4. And then they have their own shapes, kind of like leaves. Okay, so I'd go like leaf shape, leaf shape, leaf shape, leaf shape. But then when I'm actually doing it, they come out like this from the center going outwards. Okay, so now when I think about it, I'm gonna incorporate that. Like it goes like this, like that. And I can make some of these uneven a little bit, but generally I want to stay with that proportion. And you can do this with all sorts of things. You can do it with, again, bushes, trees, whatever. I think you're getting the idea. Like this one, don't think of it like a squiggle. Like, don't do this. Think of it like a leaf shape. Like this. Very nice, appealing shape. Then look at like, okay, and then it has a center. And then what does it have? Well, then you have these types of like squiggly shapes. So the squiggles are kept inside, and there's 3 squiggles at the end, and then I imagine it's sort of probably important how many squiggles there are, but it doesn't necessarily matter as long as I get like, okay, so it's leaf shaped. And there you get the center line, something like that. There's like squiggles, 3 in the end. Trying to stay within that leaf shape. And then whoop, whoop, whoop. Ooh. Okay. There's a white oak. I didn't know that, but now I know how to draw white oak. Great. Good for me. And again, you use these as always on layers. So you do your thinking first, you're planning, you're making everything correct. Then you can go in and do your, like maybe let's say I was doing this as pointy chin style. How would I do it? Maybe I'd do something like that, like this. Like it's changing the shape, so I don't like that, but generally you get the idea. Like you can keep the general geometry and then mess with the execution and it'll still work. Yeah, maybe I would have exaggerated it or something. Doesn't matter. The point is, you start simple. Same with this. Boop, 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 boop. Okay, so it's pretty much just a hexagon. Doop, 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 doop. Okay, and then if we draw a line from here to here, the stem is like that there, like goes down, but then there's a few poppy out bits. Then you've got one going to that corner, one going to that corner, one going to that corner. So draw a line, 1, 1, 1, 1, and then some pop bits go like that, go like that, go like that, go like that, and go like that. There. Like, not perfect, but very roughly and quickly I can get this shape. Because I've built the geometry more correctly, even if it's not perfect, it'll look fairly legit. It'll look like it's fine. Like, people will not be confused as to what this is. Okay, so I think basically that is it between, you know, choosing colors, looking at shapes, looking at gestures. Yeah, that's the one thing I didn't talk about. So gesture is really important. You want to look at the gesture in nature. Usually there is always gesture. So with these, you can see how there's like, oops. You can see how there is, first of all, there's this like big shape where it goes like this, and then it goes like that and like that. There's a little cut into it. That's fine, but generally I would think of it like this shape. But then the gesture is like all the things are doing this. Now, some of them don't go all the way. They get like interrupted. They become small. Some parts get like cut out. But generally it's like this. And then there's dark areas here near the base, but only near the base, really, and in shadows and stuff. So, okay, so keep the darks areas down there. Same with a lot of these, where it gets pretty dark near the base of these trees, and then they lighten up a bit as they go. And they have, like, a lot of these types of gestures. Now, with trees in a forest, what happens is the trees are far enough apart from each other that their canopy, they kind of do this, where they don't do this, for instance, where one tree is blocking the light, like this tree's blocking the light of this tree. They don't do that. They actually grow such that they don't block the light from each other. At least not, you know, you'll get some light that passes through and that will grow smaller plants and stuff, but the big ones tend to leave enough space. It's not like they're leaving enough space, it's more like the tree grows to meet the light. When it can no longer meet the light, it will stop. So it just fills in the area. So from the top, like an aerial view, if you look down at these forests, they're just like circles kind of where the trees grow, and they're just almost like perfectly giving each other, like they're packed very tightly, but they've given each other enough space. Some are taller, some are shorter, but they're not blocking each other's light, or stopping each other from getting light. So yeah, that's about all I have, because again, I'm not an expert at this, but I hope it helped, and thanks for watching.